So here we are on the last day of our tour to Burgundy, France. We're in Sens, and this is a view of the Étienne Cathedral. I'm standing in a courtyard, and there's a demonstration going on here, but it's very peaceful, not too much to worry about. So now we're on the inside, and you can immediately see what a beautiful building this is. There were previous Christian buildings here, but construction of this cathedral began in 1130. It was one of the earliest Gothic churches. The size of the cathedral was extraordinary for the time it was built, and it houses very important glass. It was for a while a very important destination of the celebrities of the day, and it was even the site of a royal wedding in 1234. It also was a temporary location for the crown of thorns from the crucifixion until their final placement at Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. We're now looking up at the revolutionary vaulting of the day. You'll notice that there are 6 sections to this vault. It's called a sexpartite vault. It connects 2 bays together, and by using this method, they could better distribute the weight downwards to the alternating columns and piers. This method of sexpartite vaulting had been used before, but this cathedral was the first one to use it throughout the building. The areas between the ribs are called webbing. Another reason this photo is interesting is you'll see that very large window, that's the clerestory window. This was an addition after the church was initially built. And in order to provide more light coming in, they made these clerestory windows even bigger, and they had to cut into the webbing. We're looking at the south transept window. The transepts were actually added later on. They were not original to the building. This window was created in the early 16th century. What we have above is a very large circular window called a rose window. It's a composition with 10 lancet, or narrow, tall windows below it. Architecturally, it's interesting because you can see that the bottom of the window extends below the arch level of the first floor. That's a little unusual. It seems to work, but that is part of what tells us this is what was added later. This 13th century window has scenes from the life of Thomas Becket, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury in England, and he battled with Henry II. He was eventually martyred in 1170. From the bottom left, we start with a view of when Thomas Becket is attempting to have a reconciliation with King Henry, goes through other events until it gets to the top after he is martyred and he's receiving Christ's blessing. You may wonder why we have a window dedicated to a British saint in a French cathedral. The reason is that in 1164, when Becket came to Sens as an exile, he visited the cathedral and he remained in France until 1170. There was actually a lot of travel and trade and communication in the Middle Ages, and people throughout Western Europe were fully aware of the problems between Becket and Henry. And when Becket was murdered, it sent shockwaves throughout Europe. Becket's legacy was certainly not restricted only to England.